Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm Nathaniel, your host today, and we have a wonderful special guest who is here joining us from Illinois, Dr. Kyle Hulsebus, who is just really a well-rounded, holistic chiropractor who is an author, a speaker, an educator, and is really helping people thrive. Dr. Kyle, I understand you have 77 years of family background in chiropractic, I should say, pardon me. And I'm really interested to hear a lot of your holistic perspectives. We've had other doctors and alternative health practitioners come in, and I think so many people are looking for connection during this time. And I understand you've developed some really important systems and protocols to help people thrive after 40 as well. So I'd just like to invite you to the show and to welcome you to introduce yourself and to tell us more about who you are and why do you do what you do.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you, Nathaniel. Yeah, I'm Dr. Kyle Hulsebus, and everything you just kind of said. I really just thanks for the opportunity to be able to come on here and share just ways to sort of express and enhance health and longevity throughout your life. And when you say holistic, the way I look at a lot of things too is holistic to me doesn't mean all parts of your body. It's all parts of your life. So
Mm.
maybe I work with a bit different definition of health with people when I jump in there, because I try to hit spiritual, mental, financial, vocational, family, social, like you said, connection and communication, which is really the core of what chiropractic is in people.
Yeah. I remember I had a history of really intense migraines as a young child, especially growing up in Alberta with the Chinooks there. And one of the ways that my parents tried to help me through that was bring me to a chiropractor and then like laser therapy. And we tried a whole bunch of different modalities. And I started gaining some appreciation in terms of the interconnection of the body and how, like what you said, there's all these elements. We tend, especially in the Western view, to compartmentalize these things. Like your business life is there. You go and you play that role and you wear a face, and then you have your financial life, and then you have your family life, and then you have your friends, and but everything really is a large living system. So in your work, you must see people through a lot of different transformations, and I imagine that is an inspiring part of what you do. Can you talk a little bit about, especially seeing that growing up and seeing people your family has helped over time, and how important it is to really kind of approach life in a more holistic lens nowadays?
Yeah, well, that's the way you bring that up. It's real interesting. We did, my wife and I. My wife's also a chiropractor, and we practiced
Okay.
together with other members of the family. But my wife and I attended a course one time where we studied all these different health conditions and many different ways to look at it. I mean, here's medical ways of looking at it. Here's chiropractic ways. Here's what acupuncture. Here's what Ayurveda would do. Here's psychosomatics, sort of how your brain and your perceptions of the world are affected. He's just as in depth on every single one as you could possibly get. And we got to the end because I was helping out with a course, and I remember the doctor looked at me afterward and he goes, "Hey, how many of these have you seen in your office?" Because there were 1,000 health conditions, and we had to go back and we had to count the ones we hadn't seen,
Hmm.
because we'd probably seen about 970 of them.
Wow.
Including
Wow.
all the different types of, I mean, we've taken care of people and assisted them in their health while they're going through different types of cancer treatments, and we'd work with the oncologists and the different therapists, and all the different things they're going through, because we're part of that team to keep their body functioning at their highest level while they're meeting their health challenges and when they don't have to meet health challenges. So
Mm.
we looked at it in many different ways. But yeah, we had 77 years. Grandpa started to practice in 1949. And so I had this unique view that my grandfather was a chiropractor. He raised three boys to be chiropractors. And back then, the philosophy that chiropractic is built on was probably a little bit more stronger in a profession than you see sometimes today. It depends on who you talk to. And my dad, for the most part, I refer to him more as a philosopher that became a chiropractor because he's got an advanced degree in chiropractic philosophy, and he's
Okay.
got this beautiful understanding of the world and health and the human body. And, he's just got a way of looking at it. And I was raised within that. Like I
Mm,
was, he was handing me stuff that I recognized as Aristotle and Plato's teachings when I was 15 and 16, even though it was many, many years, decades even before I got into chiropractic because I was going down many different paths.
mm,
But when you talk about, the effect, I mean, just the amount of different things you've seen people come through and transform, and it doesn't cure people of everything, but you do, transform is probably one of the greatest words you can use, because when you remove interference in the ability to communicate and connect internally within the body, it allows the body to express at the highest level that it can, which is where you see. But the other part of that, which is where my wife and I kind of jump out beyond just sort of your traditional adjust the spine chiropractic, is there's a quote by Dr. B.J. Palmer, who really developed the profession and the philosophy of it, that we keep hanging on the wall, and it says, you never know how far reaching something you say, think, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow. And
mm,
part of that is, if I, like your migraines are a great example. If we remove your migraines, if your brain can connect to your body and it starts to adapt properly, and you're not expressing the symptom to try to get you to do something, suddenly you interact with your family different. Suddenly
mm,
you interact with the world different. You make different friends. You make different decisions. You spend money differently. I mean, it goes. It has a ripple effect that goes universally.
mm.
It's we get esoteric in that way, but there's a lot of physical truth to that when you see it, because I've seen people suddenly just interact with the world completely different, because now they're not interacting from this way, they're interacting from this way.
Mm.
And there was a time where the family had multiple clinics, but the great story my father told, when he graduated college and he didn't want to work with his dad all the time, which, family's family, but we love him. And he and my uncle moved to Rockford, Illinois. They went from like the small town of Byron with a population of, 1,200 or whatever it was at the time in 1980. And they moved up to Rockford, which was the big city, which was probably like 150,000 people.
Okay.
And, so we're a couple hours from Chicago. And they decided, well, we know we're seeing a lot of people from here. Let's get the mailing list from Dad and let's send that out so we can tell people we now have a clinic here, right? As one does. And they went through everything. And what he found, which was really amazing, that through the 1950s and the 1960s and the 1970s, my grandfather had over 55,000 families on file
Wow.
from all
Wow.
over the state and from different states
Mm,
that were driving to this tiny little town in the middle of Illinois to see this man. It
mm,
was just floored him, just floored him. And he said, just the amount of lives at that point
mm,
is just kind of amazing. We look back over now. My cousin's got a lot of the great numbers on it, but I look and you get to continue that tradition and say, if I affect one person one
mhm.
time with one adjustment, what's the ripple effect on the world? So it's a very cool thing.
Yeah, that's super cool, and I appreciate this way of seeing the interconnection of all things. Because it's profound. If someone is living in pain, they are just never going to be, living up to their potential. And we've seen this. My understanding, the divergence between, a much more holistic view, which like naturopathic doctor, osteopathy, chiropractic, had a real divergence at a certain point, which put people into a much more, solve it with a pill, get rid of the symptom approach rather than and really suppressing a lot of the feeling. In my direct experience of chiropractic, it just creates more space for that flow of information and energy to move in the body and because I've talked to a few chiropractors and a perspective that I appreciate is that the body knows how to heal itself, but you have to remove the things that are causing the dysfunction or that blockage, whether it is a subluxation or there's something that's out of alignment, like you said, in other areas of the life, which the body's communicating to us, right? Can you talk a little bit about the intelligence of the body itself, Dr. Kyle, and just to like what has amazed you most about working with so many people and seeing that these transformations in others.
I've seen I've seen people that aren't able to heal. And in that regard, so let me define, this is the way we teach people. So health, I'm big on words. And so definitions of words, when I teach people, I teach through words. So the word health is an Anglo-Saxon, it's an Old English word. It's very relatively unchanged for 1,500 years now. And it effectively means a state of whole being or a state of wholeness, a condition of wholeness. And the old Merriam-Webster dictionary definition, you can find it somewhere online, defined health as a state of wholeness, where all the organs of the body function at 100% of the time. Meaning there's no mention of sickness in the definition of health. It's not, well, being healthy is not having symptoms. Being healthy is not being sick. Being healthy is a state of wholeness in which all the organs of the body function together at 100% of the time. Meaning in order to have health, you really only need two things, right? You need 100% function, you need 100% parts. So, and we say, the medical guys are great with the parts, like they're masters at working with the parts, which is why we love having them. And then our purview often is the function. And the other word we use for function in chiropractic is we call it intelligence. You need to have 100% intelligence functioning and connecting all these parts together at 100%. Because one thing we pointed out, if you take a cadaver, like a fresh person who has just passed away, and you look at them, they still have 100% parts. But the function's gone. That like that difference is there's no intelligence holding them together. Now, when we look at something like that, we find that there can be interference because the parts can go bad. And so we remove that because we know that if we have 100% communication to everything, effectively the intelligence that runs your body, that keeps everything, that forces your lungs to breathe, that does the interexchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood and the lungs, and puts stuff in and out of cells and tells everything how to work, and then throws some automatic processes out there, to digest food and to work with its autonomic system, that's all going to work. And it gets interference, and it starts, something goes down this road here, but nobody told it to turn right when it was supposed to, so it just kept going left. And you get symptoms, and symptoms are a sign of your body trying to communicate to the educated conscious you to say, hey, buddy, there's something going on. We need to pay attention to it. And you get signs in your body that way. You get signs in your life. You get signs in your business. You get signs in your finance. I mean, those signs are going to show up as symptoms to say, hey, we're getting off health. We don't have 100% function with the parts anymore. We always kind of do, but it's not as efficient. So when I see people, probably one of the most amazing things that I've seen with people is when they come in and they effectively don't have good parts. And I go, well, unfortunately, you don't have good parts. I've had people with cerebral palsy. I've had people that have had strokes when they were born and have grown up not having use of parts of their body, and they're not going to develop. I've seen people that had polio as kids. Or people that have had kidneys removed or different things like that, or parts that have just gone bad, or even your basic stuff, your knees degenerated, your shoulders degenerative, whatever's gone on. You have limitations on how that can heal. And then we remove interference and we restore communication and connection to as close to 100%. And it's not overnight. I mean, your body's going to restore right away, but then it's got to rebuild. And I watch these people over the course of time, and I go, my God, it's amazing what function you can get back. Yeah, you're still limited over here. You're always going to be, and you probably have to take good care of it. But the beauty of the entire thing to me is how much is there that we couldn't predict. The one little girl that had cerebral palsy, they go, she's never going to walk. We're going to have to do these surgeries. We're going to have to do this. She drools. She can't do any of that type of thing. And you take care of an individual like that, and you watch, she's sitting up on her own. She's alert. She's talking. She can't walk, but if you hold her hand, she can run. And,
wow.
and you just sit there and you start to go, well, that's amazing. Like these parts are not supposed to do that, but they do. So it'll always try to adapt to the greatest degree it can. Just watching people open up that really don't have expression, but suddenly find a way to express, talk a different way. And I had a doctor that worked for me, and he and his wife adopted a little girl that had oodles of problems because they wanted to take care of a special needs girl. And I mean, this child can't verbally talk to you. She can barely see. She knows how to sign. She can barely hear. And, he effectively told me she taught herself to read on the sly.
Wow.
Like, and I don't know how that works.
Incredible.
And they got her in she's never going to walk on her own. But I go, my goodness, her father is adjusting her regularly. And you're just watching this child thrive for the love her parents give her that she might not have gotten otherwise, and making sure there's no interference. And you just go, the amazingness and the miracle of the body and what it can do is just phenomenal. And you see stuff like that every day. I see people who aren't supposed to walk around without knee pain, just walk around without knee pain, and just a simple little thing. Sometimes I said, well, we're going to put off the knee replacement for a few years. You'll probably eventually damage your knee to the point where you need to do something. But, do we need to do it today, or can we wait 5 years and let you strengthen up and sort of create more health in your body before you go into something like that? That's what we look at.
I think it's all incredible, and I love the definition of functionality as intelligence. It's actually been my lifelong quest to understand that intelligence behind the scenes. I spent a lot of time in nature. You mentioned, philosophy. I feel like I was a philosopher before I knew what philosophy was, just in my contemplations of everything. And I want to share something important with you, because as you described, that return to intelligence in the body and how it can restore function, I feel like there's this beautiful conversation happening on our planet right now, which for inspired scientists and open-minded, inspired people, or people who've had spiritual religious experiences, there's this conversation happening where there's this bridge happening between the mysticism and the mastery that has been expressed on our planet in many different traditions, as well as this scientific nomenclature that we can understand some of these processes that are happening as we, I feel like, effectively awaken as a planet. My background in Indigenous wellness has me looking at even my own body as an expression of the land, and as one large symbiotic being, because even the complexity of the body is so, it's so beyond our comprehension. I think when we think of all the different micro bacteria that are involved in processing, like you said, digestion and keeping us healthy, just our symbiotic relationship with mitochondria. It's just so fascinating. The more we learn about the cellular, and a holistic view of the body. But I want to share this with you, Dr. Kyle, because I think it's important for inspired scientists and doctors and healers like yourself to be aware of these letters. They are the foundation of Light Heart Vision, and in them he outlines what actually was going on in his state of consciousness when he was able to help people healing. And that was, I believe, one of the masters that showed the most profound example of what's possible for human beings. And so I found these about 11 years ago. They're known as the Christ letters, but they're not very well, they're not really well shared. And they do challenge a lot of the religious dogma. He actually challenges the dogma that was placed on him. I probably wouldn't have felt drawn to them had I not had my own kind of spiritual experiences when I was in my early 20s. Now, and all that being said, I went to a lot of different. I studied Buddhism. I went to a lot, a lot of different churches. I had all these things, but nothing ever felt quite right until I found these letters. And so much of what you said about that intelligence of the body, and that also that love that your friends who are helping their adopted daughter, how much of that is the foundational reality behind all of this. We know that babies won't survive without love, but yet it's funny because we get to a certain point where we learn to adapt as grown-ups, where we don't need as much love. We can live kind of in stress. And anyways, all this to say, there's this bigger picture unfolding, I feel, for our species right now, where we're realizing so much of the miraculous and the that which we had connection to more so when we were young is actually more of a reality, even if you just look at it from a quantum perspective. Is like so I wanted to share that these letters exist. If you're interested in ever reading them, I'm happy to share them with you, because I feel like they would add to your appreciation from a philosophical point of view of like what is truly capable for healing from a healing perspective.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we'll check them out. I've studied many different religions, and mostly surface, but I've gone in depth on several, and It was funny because I did this course and we studied all these different ologies. We studied just every science you can think of. We studied many different spiritual traditions, path, religions, and looked at the common universal principles within. And I come back and I go to my patients and they go, "Were you doing continuing ed and learning about insurance?" I go, "No, I'm 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 out and I'm just." And they go, "Does that count?" And I go, "Not really." And they go, "Well, why do you study it?" And I go, "Because I take care of people from so many different traditions. I want to be able to make certain I can communicate and connect with them properly in order to help them on their journey."
It's beautiful.
And whether that journey is going to be, I need to improve the overall function of your body so that you can go do the work that you do, or I want to make certain that you're connected. You don't feel like you're losing connection spiritually, or that you're sort of disempowered with money, and you don't know how to pay for care, and we can sit and have a conversation about that. Or whether you hate your job and you're not quite certain you can get up in the morning and do it, and we can help you figure out what inspires you most and how to really transform that.
Mm.
That's to us, like you brought up the subluxation earlier, which is the foundation of chiropractic, which has many different definitions and interpretations.
Okay. I
The
wasn't aware of
most
that. Yeah.
so the most scientific way is that it's the subluxation by definition is really that there's bones. You have 24 movable vertebrae. You have one that's slightly misaligned. It's not dislocated. A luxation is a full dislocation.
Okay.
Okay, a subluxation is less than a full dislocation, but it's enough where we stop having proper motion between the joints of the bones, which then interferes with the ability of the brain to communicate down that nerve. And there's a lot of technical stuff you can go into. The esoteric definition of the subluxation is that it is interference between the intelligence of the body going out to be able to express itself through all the parts of the body. And that's getting and when I found in chiropractic, when I studied Dr. Palmer's, I found that he meant both. Because he was looking at both the physical and the immaterial. Because to him, he said you can't have. He had a great line. He stole it from the ancient Egyptians, and who actually the Greeks stole it from the Egyptians, and Palmer stole it from the Greeks, and which is what we do. We syncretically build. But he said the problem you get with certain things, like if we take psychiatry, you got all mind never matter, and with the medical guys, you always had all matter never mind. But he said you need mind and matter, and you need them connected in order to express the total amount of health. So you can't have one without the other. And when he brought in sort of his esoteric views into it, you started to see philosophically that, yeah, there's a whole combination of stuff going in here. And he did teach that. He did teach that on how to build a business, and he did teach that on how to, create fortunes and to speak to people and to have social empowerment and family and everything else. Did he succeed on everything? Everybody's up and down. That's how the world works. But there is a lot of that coming out of there. So it's fascinating stuff to look at.
Yeah, I really appreciate you going more into that definition. And to me, it is like all traditions. The way I like to see it, I call it the law of the circle. Like if we're all as conscious beings around in a big circle of existence, and whatever the truth is that interconnects us all is at the center, we all have a slightly different angle at it. And what's important about that is our capacity and ability to listen to people that are on other ends of the spectrum, or are viewing that truth, and so that we can develop our capacity to great understand it. Because I do feel like the more that we realize how miraculous life really is, and the depth of all these interconnections, the more we have this choice, right? And there's always that famous story of the Buddhists who realized the particles of existence coming in and out of vibration was a certain, like, trillions of times in a second. They actually had the experiential direct experience of that. And then they found a physicist who had calculated it to the same degree, and they went and visited the physicist, and he was just miserable. So it's like we can have all this intellectual knowledge, but if we're not applying it and using it for having more joy, more connection in our families and all this stuff, it's kind of, what's the point? So I'm wondering, like, a lot of people, I've seen chiropractic as a field, kind of, there's so many chiropractors out there. And I really appreciate, one of the things I appreciate about you is this holistic perspective. I haven't encountered maybe a couple guys, because I like to interview people before I work with them. And I mean, I feel like chiropractic has also in some places developed a bit of a reputation of being like, this cookie cutter kind of come in, get cracked, go out, and it can be like kind of like a
Like an assembly
factory
line.
assembly
Yeah.
line kind of feeling. And I've had that direct experience. Is there any message you'd like to share? Maybe if there's chiropractors listening to this, or folks to really, how do you choose a good practitioner? How do you, really honor your own unique journey of health?
You know, I would, I think like you said, you go interview people. Now, when people ask me who to see, I said, well, I say, remember, we're working with the bones of the spine, that you want somebody that can assess that and see the overall health of it and be able to give you a great sort of in depth, here's where you are, here's the different things you need to do. And whether it's, remember also that the reason a chiropractor is a doctor is we are trained to be able to recognize things, to also see when you need more than us.
Mm,
We
mm,
work with all the surgeons and all the hospitals in my area. Like we work back
okay.
and forth all the time.
Okay.
I work with osteopaths, I work with surgeons, MDs, all sorts of different people, because in the end we're doctors and we're trying to help people have their greatest level of health. But I need to be able to recognize too that, Nathaniel, you got a real bad hip joint. You need to
Mm,
go have these guys look at it. Like, we're
mm,
going to help you be healthy, but we need to work in tandem. Or there is like an interesting story. My dad, because we all look at radiology. We get tested. In fact, chiropractors have more radiology training than any other healthcare practitioner before you
mm.
go into radiology. We
Interesting.
have we have 2 years. And so we get multiple board tests actually in the United States anyway on radiology, on reading X-rays. Now it's skeletal. It's not, we do some CT and MRI, and I know people that go very in depth, but we're highly skilled just walking out of school being able to look at that, because we look at this all day.
Mm,
And not only that, I always tell people, I go, I'm going to adjust you by hand physically. I want to know what I'm working with. I don't want to guess.
mhm.
Like, some people are like, well, my favorite line is, well, my old chiropractor didn't need X-rays to know what to adjust. And I go, well, I guess I'm a crappy one. I do. I like to see what I'm working with, and I have that visual in mind when my hands are there, so I know exactly what I'm working with. So my first recommendation for people is actually go to a chiropractor that's going to x-ray you before they work on you, so they
Mm,
can see what they're working with. Not just looking for pathology, which
mhm,
is also important, and you want to be able to recognize. My father found the cancer in the guy's lung and saved his life.
mm,
And because we're trained to recognize that. And it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it's incidental, but that's while trying to assess his spine. And he
mm,
got him to the right people. But go to somebody that's going to do that, because you want somebody that's going to do it. Now also look at people that are going to check your entire spine.
mm,
And even there's chiropractors that are only going to adjust your upper cervical spine, which is great. They do phenomenal work on people. But a lot of them that I know assess the health of your entire spine at the same time,
mm,
because they're looking at you holistically.
mhm,
They're not just going to be a mechanic looking at that one piece. That's what they're going to track, because they're going to adjust it. So but make certain you're going to have somebody that's going to do that. And then I'm more appreciative of being able to adjust by hand, but make certain they're skilled at whatever way they're going to provide a specific adjustment to you.
mm,
So whether that's going to be with an instrument, whether it's going to be using drop pieces on a table, whether that's going to be adjusting you with, gyros, praxis, done by hand is actually what the word means, chiropractic.
okay.
Make certain you got somebody that's going to put in the skill. You might have somebody that's new out of school, and they're not going to be 100%, but probably they're either going to have mentorship, or they're going to have, a little backup, or they're going to still give you a quality adjustment one way or another. So I don't worry about that. And then somebody that's going to give you some type of care plan
Mhm,
that's going to allow you to go through time, because they understand you're not going to be perfect overnight.
mhm,
And so it's not so much that, boy, I need to see you 10,000 times in order to get you well. It's more, your body requires this input over the course of time in order to change the pattern that it's caught in. We have to do a pattern change. You talked about circles. I need you on a different circle.
mhm.
That doesn't happen overnight. We have to gradually shift you over there over the course of time on a care plan for your body to make change. Then you get to the point where, oh, I want to come for maintenance, or I want to come for supportive care. I just want to come when I have a symptom. That's fine, but first get it to that minimal level where you've gone from sort of here spiraling down to here spiraling up. So you know those three things. And sometimes I have people come in, they go, I'm only in town for 3 days. I go, great, I'm going to see you 3 times. And then we're going to help you find somebody.
Yeah.
But you know, so it's and one reason that I end up with people flying in from all over the country and from different countries in that is because I have a hard time referring them to people that complete all those boxes, unfortunately. But you'll find them, they're all over. I just don't know everybody.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I really appreciate that. I feel like it's a really important understanding and frame for people to come in and to, because it's a two-way street, right? I mean, people coming in, they need to be 100% responsible for their health, and you're coming in and being 100%, responsible for helping them as best you can. And I recognize the modern pressures, here in
Sure.
Canada, like there's the public health, and that's, we see like backlogs, people going in there for like a little thing in the waiting rooms for 8 hours. And then there's the people in private practice, but they're also, they might have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, in their education. Now they're running a business. They have to see as many. It's a volume game for a lot of
There
people. So
is.
I understand there is this balance that, we don't live in this like world where we all just have all unlimited time and resources. Yet hopefully that happens at some point in our evolution.
But I have a comment for that too.
Yeah,
Is
please.
there are and I'm one of them some days, and then on other days I'm not. But there is a certain amount of people come in, and the type of practitioner that I am is, if you come in and ask a question, I'm probably going to take the time to answer it. If I'm very busy, I might say I don't have time to answer that right now. But if you come back later, or if you can wait 15 minutes, I can come back in, we can sit down, I can go through that with you.
Mm.
And because sometimes I might come in, I got a family of 5, and I got a family of 5 across the hall, and
Yeah.
I got to see everybody, and you're there to get adjusted. You're
Yeah.
there to get this care. But I also have people that say, hey, doc, I want you to see, I got a promotion. Let me show you what I'm doing now. Or
Mm-hmm.
I've got, I get a lot of people that tell me about their lives, because everybody that comes into us is family.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But at the same time, it's also a matter of, like, right now, can I stop and can I look you, where I'm looking in the camera, and, we're not really going to look at each other's eyes, but at the same time, can I sit down and focus right on you and be connected with you and say, tell me what's going on. Let's get you on the table and fix it. And can I do that in 2.5 minutes? I can. And it's a skill you kind of learn. I call it the lost art of doctoring some
Wow.
days. But I know I have a great friend who's a cardiologist in the Northeast in the U.S., and he's gotten to the point where in the medical fields he's in, it really bothers him that he has to spend all this time on a computer taking notes and not connecting with his patient, which makes people feel disconnected. And he only gets 15 minutes with that patient. He really needs an hour because he's dealing with hearts. And we had this conversation. He said, so what he's been able to do is he's either got a little recorder with him, or he's got an excellent memory, and he's going to sit down and be as present and connected to that patient as he can be in that 15 minutes.
Wow.
Because he's there to solve a problem, or he's there to check in with them, or he's there to connect with them. And then he might say, all right, we're going to put these couple of things in, and then I'm going to go record this, and I'm going to follow up with you. But he doesn't want to be over here going, and because when you're not facing somebody, it beats you up. And I see surgeons that are brilliant surgeons, and they'll walk in, they sit down, and they get present with a patient in 3 seconds. And then they leave, and the guy's like, God, I thought he was there talking to me forever, but it was 4 minutes.
Wow.
I go, right. I go, that's the power of being able to do. Yes, you can do this high volume. It's just a matter of what connection do I get? Am I so frazzled that I can't look at you? Which then you kind of get a little less confidence, I find, in who you're doing. But that wouldn't just happen in with a doctor. You understand? I mean, if you were busy, off to the side doing something while we talked right now, I'd wonder, why am I on this podcast?
Yeah, exactly.
He's
Exactly.
not really interested in what I'm saying. Or, when you go into a store and somebody comes to help you, when you're in high quality. If you go into Ralph Lauren, somebody's going to come help you.
Mhm.
and they're going to be present with you, and they're going to step back and be focused on you if you need assistance without bothering you too much. Or, when you go and they go, yeah, they're over there, have fun when you take a look.
Yeah.
And it's that whole interplay, and you do get it in many different areas, but this ability to be present and sort of listen allows you to have this very high volume and also be very connected to people at the same time. And sometimes you find that it's either the inexperienced or the ones with different mentorship that just haven't learned that skill yet. But the ones that everybody says, boy, that's such a great doctor, he spends so much time with me, and then you go back and calculate it and you go, every time I'm in there, it's less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, I really appreciate this perspective, Dr. Kyle. Like presence is something we talk a lot about how it's really underappreciated in our society, and yet it is felt. Like we don't talk about it a lot, and we don't always recognize the value of our own presence. But I certainly notice with our daughter when she is not getting the presence that she desires, she lets us know, and it's actually such an important topic, like you said, for everyone in this time. There's a lot of screen addiction. There's a lot of people who are like in
Right.
fear. They're not really embodied present with their, and I feel like you're absolutely right. In my direct experience, just presence alone can be transformative for someone. Just being heard, just being felt, just being appreciated for who they are and where they're at can often help someone just see their own solution, because we do have, like you said, the intelligence of the body. Once it's connected, it can do its work. But so many of people are feeling disconnected from not only from one another, but from the lands, from parts of themselves. So super valuable. And I think this is a skill, man. Like I feel like you could do a master class and help a lot of practitioners out there. I think that's such a beautiful take that you have on that. So thank you for sharing that.
When I've been around it for so many years and watched it, and there are days where people walk in. I've had comments from my front desk because nobody tells me directly. And they come in and they go, everybody wondered what was wrong with you today. And I go, what do you mean? Like people came up, they go, well, you seem very distracted. And I'm like, and I'm completely unaware of it, but I go, I must have been thinking about something instead of thinking about that. I still gave them good care, but it was kind of like when you drive and then you look around and you realize, you go, how did I get here? Like you've actually, which is creepy when you think about it, you've been behind the wheel of a car for 3 or 4 miles, but you don't know what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's been stoplights and stop signs and everything, but you've been so caught in your head that you just kind of went on automatic, and you're like, my God. It's weird the way your brain works, and sometimes you just, those are those little distractions. And when you talk about, screens and phones and everything else, it's not so much people are feeling disconnected. I feel like a lot of times people are on there, especially when I see younger people, looking for the connection, because they're looking for that they seek out, and it's such an artificial thing, but they're sort of taught that. I see many different perspectives. I always joke. I say I always see the very young and the very old love their phones more than anybody else.
Yeah.
It's sort of when I get to this point, it's that old thing like Grandma always says, when are you going to come visit? And you don't, so they're on their phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're looking for a connection from somebody. Connection
Great point.
is, when we adjust, we're reconnecting, but am I just reconnecting your brain with your body? Or am I reconnecting you? We'll go esoteric again. Am I reconnecting the essence of you with the world around you, as you said?
Yeah.
And there's, that you've done indigenous studies, and it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever studied from different tribes is this idea of the medicine wheel. And like the 20 count and all that, and they see how we're connected in multiple ways on multiple planes, and just that sort of viewpoint of it. I've done an amazing amount of studies. One of the other things I think that they sort of disconnects people in society, and is either I don't like my job, I'm just going through and I'm doing the dregs because I need to have a job, I need to get money, and I need to do that, and so they're a little disempowered in that. And many different things. But one of the things I think disconnects us is we go, people are the problem in nature. And what we forget is that people are part of nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not a problem in nature. We're just simply another piece of the nature. And because we put ourselves like above it and we put ourselves as superior to it, we've taken ourselves out of ourselves. and we sort of look down on where we are rather than looking at who we are.
Hmm.
And I got that perspective over 20 years ago from a beautiful collection of essays by pagan authors. And I remember, I think it was Lee DeAngelis, and she wrote in this essay, she's trying to make that point. And usually you see that, well, humans, we go in, we just screw everything up, and we burn stuff down, and we build all these buildings, and we ruin nature, and we hate nature. And it was something along the lines of, and I'm probably misquoting because it's been 20 years since I read it, but the basic idea of it was, I believe it was somewhere in Africa, and they wanted to turn an area into a wildlife preserve. And whether it was turning it into, because we need to preserve this, we need to protect it, we're going to have rangers in there type of thing. And, maybe tourism, we can go do ecotourism and stuff, beautiful. But there was a human tribe that lived in there, and they only wanted animals in there. So they went in and told the tribe, we're going to relocate you. And the tribe had been there for umpteen, hundreds of years or centuries or thousands or who knows. And the tribe was like, all right, great, we'll move up, we'll go to the other river, we'll go outside of the wildlife preserve, no big deal. Grabbed all their stuff, picked everything up, moved out of there. No more people were in there, great, because people interfere with nature. So we had to get the people out. And the nature just fell apart. The rivers fell apart. The elephants came through and trampled everything. All the vegetation was gone. Species started to die. And they're like, what happened? They go, you took away one of the main parts of the environment. And the way it was kind of looked at was, it was the people. The people are part of the environment. Stop looking at yourself as not part of where you are. We live differently, but there's animal species that build like mud homes that they go live in. And you watch birds carve open trunks of trees. They create homes. Humans do it in a different way. But having that awareness, not as we're above it, but we're part of it, we go, how do we integrate ourselves with that? It's like it's the ancient war between technology and ecology.
Yeah. I really appreciate how you brought that up right at the end, technology. And this concept of stewardship is, I mean, it's embedded in every indigenous culture. And I really do feel like forests, I've had this experience too with medicine people going on walks. Certain medicines will thrive when they're picked correctly. You don't take everything, you take what you need. And because the land is always giving us what we need. And even if we go and walk in our neighborhoods here, the medicines that are around our place that most people are probably totally unaware of are actually the medicines that the people around there need, because there is that intelligence exchange. There's the doctrine of signatures, which shows us what things are good for. And a lot of it's still here. It's probably rarer than it's at certain points in our unfolding story, but that communication between the plants
Exactly.
and the humans is so important. And you mentioned technology. My understanding, since we brought up words, my understanding of technology, the root of technology is not the gadget or the root word, it's the idea. It's the ideology behind the technology. And I do truly believe that we can have technologies that are harmonically in alignment with nature, but we have to, as a species, get over this ideology of superiority and supremacy and dominance. Because not only do we see it like as we've positioned ourselves collectively as a species, but also within our species, we have these hierarchical structures. That hierarchies can be good for, like, I'm sure you see them within the body too. They're good for, like, you know, f- carrying through a task or having a project. But when we have identities as hierarchies, and it creates a disconnect between, what's happening on the ground floor of people being served, and then the quote unquote leaders. And then we've seen this weird kind of time in history, like you said, there's this extinctionist movement of people who think there should be no humans on the planet because it would be a better world. And in my view, like, humans are such a beautiful species. We're creative in ways that no other species on the planet has. Our ability to communicate, our ability to envision. Yet we do need that harmony to really feel that sense of who we really are. And I feel like, these we take nature preserves and we put pathways. We say, don't walk anywhere, you're going to disturb all the species. But then we don't teach her how to interact
Right.
properly with the species. And this is where I feel like so many indigenous sciences and the knowledge of elders, thankfully, there is a return of this, at least in around the area that I'm seeing. So I appreciate you bringing all this up. I think it's such a talk of our time, and also how to our consciousness. affects our ability. Can you talk a little bit about consciousness from your lens, Dr. Kyle, and how when you're doing this work of chiropractic, it's allowing probably that intelligence greater. Have you noticed people shift, like you talk about shifting their whole lives? Are people becoming more and more conscious in the body? What does that mean to you, since you have that philosophical foundation?
We talk about two types of intelligence in the body in chiropractic philosophy. And we have innate intelligence, which you could probably equate to autonomic functions and your brain sort of working in the background saying, all right, now we're going to make the digestive system turn on, or now we're going to get the heartbeat up, or, it's got its automatic functions, but it's just sort of that underlying, there's gravitational pressure here. So we're going to send some osteoclasts over there to break a little bone down. We're going to put some osteoblasts over here and build a little bone up. And, it's going to work with all the universal laws and continuously adapt your structures to the universal forces that are acting on it all the time, like air pressure, gravity, everything else. And then we have what we call an educated intelligence, which, educated, we could call it the stupid intelligence too, but because that's the one that believes, the world. That's our conscious self for the most part. That's the one that decides that, boy, I felt really good when I had all that alcohol. I'm going to do it again. Your innate intelligence is going, well, we put poison in, let's throw it up.
Yeah.
But your educated goes, but I'm going to go fit in over here, or got rid of my headaches, I'm going to keep doing it. I mean, there's everybody's got multiple reasons for doing what they do. And, eventually your innate just kind of goes, all right, well, just start adapting. That's what it does. It adapts to everything we put into it. So when we talk about consciousness, so the word doctor comes from the Latin verb docere, meaning to teach, and which is different than educate. Because educate is ex ducare, meaning, or it could be ducare or ducere. There's a lot of argument about that on the real etymology, but ex is out of, and if it's the one, it's going to be to lead out of, to lead forth. And I say educate, the way I'll define it, education is a state of leading forth out of ignorance. And when a doctor's job is that's why a PhD is a doctor, you understand, because they're learned enough in something to be able to relate it to you, right? So a doctor of medicine ought to be, in reality, learned enough in the medical sciences and the medical practices to be able to relate it to other people and to use it at a masterful level. But in the end, it's that teaching. A doctor of chiropractic is somebody learned enough in the chiropractic arts and the chiropractic principles, they're the only ones learned in chiropractic, to be able to relate that to people. But I always felt when people come in, because I'm a doctor and I'm a teacher, that means that 90% of my job is to lead you forth from ignorance, educate you. Because that's my job. And then I got this 10%, I'm going to do the little mechanic stuff over here. That's the simple part. That's what we do, a lot of education and teaching in my office. We have people that do really great with health, because my job is to empower you, to put you in a state of being, of power within yourself, within your mind, empowerment, in order to make quality decisions about your own life. That's what I feel that is. So when we talk about consciousness, what I'm trying to do is educate you out of ignorance, to lead you out of that ignorance through my teachings, my understanding, my philosophy, so you have greater empowerment in yourself, so you can bring that conscious into your educated self, and you can go in and interact with the world differently. And then instead of letting your body stress and work very, very hard, you always have stress, work very, very hard against stress, you can go, hey, I'm going to make different, possibly quality actions so that I don't have to challenge my innate intelligence quite as much today. And we can be a little more efficient when we adapt. But some days you look over and you go, Cheetos sound really good, I'm going to go do that today. Which, I'm going to go to the movies later probably, and I'm going to get a great big soda pop, and I'm going to get a great big popcorn. Is that my daily meal? It's not. But does it mean that every now and again I can go have fun? Beautiful, yes. But I'm conscious of that. It doesn't mean don't ever make, because I've seen people also that work very, very hard to only do scientifically what is supposed to be the greatest healthy thing for you and do absolutely nothing else, and they're sort of obsessed with that. And I would call that a sickness, because you are fighting so hard to be a certain way, you're becoming rigid and not adaptable. And I've
Yeah.
seen very bizarre like health conditions show up in
Yeah.
people that fight for that all the time. It goes, take it easy, take a couple breaths,
Yeah.
go live your life and enjoy it. You're human.
Yeah.
If you don't do the perfect thing every single moment, that's the way it is. But I know other people
Mhm.
that they found out the diet that worked for them and they just kind of stick to that. And every now and again they deviate and then they reset back to their diet and they do
Mhm.
great. So consciousness is braining things from unconscious to conscious,
Mhm.
so you're aware of them, so you can integrate them, so you can actually utilize them to their nth degree in your own life. And
Yeah.
then you end up with a whole new level of ignorance, which you then build on from there.
Mm.
It's that old thing, you know, that Socrates said, and I agree with him, I now know enough to really know that I know nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I love your ability to articulate all of that, Dr. Hal. It's really important conversation these times, and really, I can see, the people who are trying to control every valuable every variable in life. There's probably some underlying fear there, and yet when we choose to do things we love, I feel like this is why children can be our greatest teachers and our greatest leaders, because they're constantly learning. I mean, they go from a place of not even being able to have much mobility at all to walking and crawling and running, and they do it. They're constantly building on that ignorance, as you say, that not knowing, going into the unknown, trying things, seeing what's working. But they're also having this playful joyfulness. And if we're made for anything, it's got to be happy and to have joy in life. Like otherwise, what's the point if it's all
To
this grind?
have fulfillment, right?
Fulfillment. Yeah.
Fulfillment, I
Yeah.
think, is a beautiful word, to fulfill ourselves, because to be happy all the time is sort of a misnomer. I mean, you're going
Yes.
to go up and down with
Yeah.
stuff all the time. You're going to have times where you're down. You're going to have times where you're up. It's more that, you know what? But either way, if I can look and see that all the times are fulfilling to me,
Hmm.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
But you brought that up about against children. You know, one of the things I observe with children is I take care of stroke patients.
Okay.
And people come in after they've had strokes and they've lost the ability to hear and different things, or people that are wheelchair bound. And I've had these discussions with them and they go, it's just scary as hell because I can't use that part of my body. I'm afraid to try to walk.
Mm.
And usually, and they've got very, very good physical therapists to help them rehab, which is fantastic. And we try to find those guys too. But because a great physical therapist is going to help those people rehab, I'm going to restore communication. But they're going to push them and they're going to help them get over their fear, because they're going to give them knowledge and understanding, and they're going to put them in a place where they're not worried. Because what are they worried about? Falling, failing. But when you look at a toddler learning to walk, what are they not worried about? Falling, failing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because nobody
Yeah.
taught them that failure was bad. Nobody even taught them that that's a failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's just more that, all right, they're down. They go, okay, well, I guess that didn't work. Let's do it a different way.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen kids fall down like 3 or 4 stairs, and they sit there and they cry, and nobody comes, and then they go, okay, and then they get back up and they try to figure it out again.
Yeah, they go back up the stairs.
Yeah, I mean, but I sit there and I joke with people and I go, if us at our age, in our 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever, had to learn to walk now, we'd be screwed.
Yeah.
But I can't let anybody know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
learned that through learning foreign languages from when I found Benny Lewis, who did Fluent in 3 months, who's a fun guy to learn from, because he said you have to go out. Basically, you got to go out and do it scared. You have to go sound like an idiot and a caveman, the way that a new speaker would,
Yep.
just saying words badly and screwing up all the conjugations of verbs. But the more you do that, the more you're going to learn. The more you try to figure out how to do it perfectly before you ever open your mouth, the more the harder it is to actually learn that language.
Yep.
So
Makes
it's that
perfect
same
sense.
thing. Yeah, because people say like Chinese is supposed to be this hard language to learn. And I go, it hasn't stopped like 1.8 billion Chinese babies from learning it.
Exactly.
I mean,
Good point.
somehow all these babies keep learning these languages that are super difficult.
Yep. Yep.
And they don't have any problems doing it because they're not up here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, so much value and wisdom in that, Dr. Kyle. So speaking on fulfillment and everything we've talked about, I know you also have a 40 over 40
Yes.
product that you wanted to mention, like to help people. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so a couple of years ago, it came about. I'll give it a quick origin. It came about when I was working with one of my mastermind partners, and he just said, "What's the average age of people in your office that like come in and really have problems and do a lot of long-term care?" And I go, it's got to be on a rough estimate from like 45 to 55 years old. Those are the ones that is that big core? And he goes, great, let's. So we kind of took it off that riff of Forbes 30 under 30, and we called it the 40 over 40, because we go and then I started to research it, and I realized that you see these sort of outlier beautiful things in this 30 under 30, but they're outliers. They're great, but when we hit this certain point, we're like, but then you start to study this and you go, and I got lists and lists and hundreds of people that they were in their 40s, 50s, 60s, hell, their 80s sometimes, when it finally clicked for them and they took off. And I go, that's interesting, because the reason I think that I see that is when people get to around, and it doesn't mean that any of the stuff that I teach isn't for you when you're a teenager, in your 20s or 30s. It's a little bit of a gimmick in that regard, but it's usually around the age of 40 is where we have a little more stability in life. We kind of know we've either, maybe we've had kids and the kids are grown. If you started at 18, the kids are certainly out of there. But you've got people that are a little bit more set in their relationships. Some have been through a divorce, and now they've figured out where they want to be in life and who they want to be with in life. They tend to have a little more financial stability. They've got a savings account. They know where they are. They sort of have gotten to their management or wherever they are in their job and their life. They got stability there. They've done great learning, and they're thinking of learning a little bit more. They're maybe questioning, or they've gotten a little certain on where they want to go spiritually and which direction and path that is. They tend to know where they are socially. They're in their social groups. They've got bowling leagues and different things like that. And sometimes they're going, now I got to focus on my physical health a little bit. And they end up with me because they're getting weird symptoms, and we help get them on that path. And then some of the coaching and workshops and stuff that my wife and I do together is to also help people figure out where do you want to be fulfilled in life. So when I created this, we created 40 days of 40 ways to maximize health and longevity after 40 years of age. And when I initially did it, we did it in 40 videos in 40 days, which is a massive amount of content. They're all about 5-minute videos. We wanted to make them very easy to do it. You can get on, you can get it, you can get them on there where we'll email them to you every single day for 40 days at 40over40.com. That's 40over40.com. And you can get on, but we go through the whole thing. We start with the physical, but there's also a connection. I talk about spiritual. I talk about having health. Now, mental health, I'm not talking about depression and anxiety and all that. With mental health and well-being, it's your learning. It's your creativity. It's go out there and create. I had a great quote, one of them was play games, because I had a great quote from Walt Disney that was, and I'll paraphrase, but the biggest problem we have is we grew up and we forgot what it was like to be 12 years old. We need to remember what it's like to be 12 years old.
Yeah.
And go out and do silly things. But I have, go and learn about money. And as we were just talking about doctors, learn to ask quality questions of your healthcare provider. Empower yourself knowledge-wise, mentally, enough so when you go in with a thing, you don't go in and have, every 18 conspiracies or all that and go, but I was studying about the thyroid, doctor, and I read a couple of different things, and I understand this is what it does in my body, and these are the symptoms I'm having, and I'm not quite certain I'd really like to be medicated with that. Do we have other options? I was looking at a few. Can I discuss those with you? And if you walk in and you're empowered that way, and they go, maybe you're with the wrong person, or maybe it's like, okay, great, you've opened up a fantastic dialogue, because in my purview, doctors went into school so that they could help you be healthier.
Yeah.
So, and I have things like that. But then it's also, stuff you can do for your relationships. We talked about connection. One of the most watched videos I had was turn off your phone. and I start it right away and understand it this way, is give your phone a break from you. Your phone needs time off too.
Yeah.
Go turn it off, and turning your phone off entirely for 60 minutes is terrifying to some people. And I understand that there's people that are using it to run their businesses and everything. I'm not going into that. But I learned from Bill Walsh, a guy years ago in the Chicago area that did a thing. He said this great line that always stuck with me. He said, turn your TV off for 90 days. He said, you'll hate me for 90 days and you'll love me the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So I've stolen that and said, turn off your social media and your cell phone for 90 days. You'll really hate me for 90 days, but you'll probably love me the rest of your life. because taking that decompression from it and then reconnecting with the world around you, when you come back to it, it won't seem as immediate and important, and you'll be
Yeah.
able to just look at it and be friends with people again. That's been my experience. So we hit that on all different things. We send it out as 40 videos. We're turning it into a sort of a collectible book with
Cool.
illustrations that we're going to do, and we're going to expand it so we have those things for multiple different walks of life as well.
I love it. I love it. So we'll be sure to share that in the show notes as well, Dr.
Appreciate it.
Kyle. So I'd like to ask you, before we start to wrap up here, all of this work that you're doing, really bringing holistic frames to people, helping people through these transformations. What is your ultimate vision of how you would like to see all of this unfolding, whether it's through your legacy, but also like a higher vision for the world? What would you like to see unfold and be fulfilled in our world?
The one thing I've got written down in my sort of overall plan is where one of the underlying pieces is that definition of health. I would love to shift in especially Western society, which is where it would exist. Probably I would say requires more of that push
Hmm.
to have that be more inside out than outside in.
Hmm.
It's internal. Health is internal, and it's an adaptation to the external. And just have that sort of paradigm shift where people stop looking and go, what am I lacking that I
Hmm.
need, rather
Hmm.
than
Hmm.
how can I adapt to deal with.
Hmm.
And that's my underlying vision. If we can do that in the next century or 2 centuries, and you see it shifting in different areas, it'd
Hmm.
be profound on humanity, because I think the only way we're really going to expand, in society, and I talk about going, I love what they're doing for deep sea exploration and space exploration. That's only going to exist if we can look at it, because if we do send people to Mars, they ain't going to be going out there and finding which plants to take.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
going to be, how are we going to regulate ourselves internally so that we don't constantly need this outside?
Hmm.
Because we're just not going to have the resources except what we bring with us.
Yeah.
And that fundamental shift that's in there, it used to exist. The history goes through shifts.
Yep.
I'm reading Will Durant right now. I'm watching it. And just having that where we can we look at that perception through everything.
Mm.
So that's it. And then part of the legacy that I'd love to leave behind physically is, just a place of learning where people can go in and see things from that perspective.
It's really beautiful. And, this is why we started Lightheart Vision, is really very similar reasons are aligned. Like I've been saying for years, we actually, especially here, I find in Canada, it's not a healthcare model; it's a sick care model. We're always looking to basically remove symptoms of people who are not well. And yet, everything I've learned from every master that I've studied in my own direct experience is that that intelligence is innately everywhere. When we allow the flow and allow that connection, it can restore it. And I feel like all ill health is when people say dis-ease. It's out of alignment with the natural rhythms that would want. Yeah, please.
Well, let me just, I'm going to correct that just on that word. I'm big on words.
Sure. Yeah.
Health being a state of wholeness, a condition of wholeness,
Yeah.
it goes through cycles naturally of ease and dis-ease.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So dis-ease isn't bad and ease isn't good. They're part of the same whole.
Okay.
And that was that old thing, like you got a child. The
Hmm.
child eats something that's not good for it, and the
Yeah.
child gets a fever and throws up. That doesn't mean the child's sick. That means the child responded appropriately
Mm.
to a poison.
Mm.
So that's a cycle. That's part of that cycle.
Thank
So
you.
don't get too caught up in, oh, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm
Okay.
good. It's
Okay.
okay. Where am I in the cycle right now, and how do we not get stuck on it?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And because
Adapt.
the what I've understood is the remedy is in the symptoms. I mean, if you're congested, that's your body's way of getting rid
Exactly.
of the toxins, right? So
Yeah. Most colds prolong because we're trying to stop the drain.
exactly. That's what I meant by sick care is like, well, here's a pill to stop the congestion, but that's the very mechanism that or here's a pill to take down the fever, but the fever is actually your body trying to activate the nervous system and to get rid of the invader,
Correct.
right? So I really appreciate so much of what that I can tell that we barely talked a
yeah.
little bit about the depth that you have knowledge and wisdom and experience that you have, Dr. Kyle. I would love to invite you. I know you're probably running several projects, but if you want to share more about your 40 over 40, you are certainly welcome to come to our school community, which is a free community. And we've had a lot of other podcast guests come in, as well as some really beautiful people. And we're gathering perspectives because, we really have this higher vision of a world. I like to call it home, heaven on
Right.
Mother Earth. World enlightenment, I feel, is the natural destiny of our species when we really embrace awakening to this larger intelligence that we all share part of collectively. So I'd love to invite you to check that out. I know it's another platform, but
I
actually,
love
I
it.
just got to put a plug for school here because everything you said about taking that break and appreciating authentic connections. I took a long, long break from social media. I actually do not like most. I don't really even like being online. But when I found school, because there's no ads and there's no algorithms, it's
Right.
just pure authentic relationships and connections with people. To me, it's the first authentic community platform. So I'd like to just share that with you and to any guests
Please.
listening as well to check it out because I really feel like it's has the power to transform the internet, and collectively we do have the power to say exactly what you said, to return to a deeper awareness of what means to be whole, and then to express from that place and do it even though we're scared. I feel like we have to keep moving forward as a species, because humans are beautiful, and you've reminded us through this conversation how beautiful we are, and the innate intelligence, and also our ability to change the educated consciousness or the conditioned consciousness. So, Dr. Kyle, where else can people find you other than 40 over 40? And what's the best
There.
way to get connect with you?
The best way, the 40 over 40, I'd encourage you get on. We'll give you a free little download of, as I said, I got all these people. I got 40 quotes from people to hopefully inspire you. If no matter what age you are, and please, if you're in your teens or 20s or 30s, it's for everybody. Even though it says over 40, you might as well get a head start, right?
Yeah.
So 40over40.com is one of the greatest ways to do it. You can get
Okay.
on, and if you get on our mailing list, I don't send a lot of mails out beyond the 40 over 40 ones, but it's there and available. The other way is people can find information about me. I love it if anybody that's professional wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just make sure it's my image. There's a couple of Kyle Hulsebuses out there, and another's a doctor. And then drkylehulsebus.com is my speaking page. I do speak to companies, I speak to organizations, and we do different keynotes and we do different workshops. And then we don't have anything on there, but my wife and I also do workshops over the course of 2 days to really help people empower themselves and in whatever they're doing. So I'm excited. You can always reach me through the emails and the contact information there. So thank you.
That's beautiful. Okay, thanks very much, Dr. Kyle. I just have one last question before I invite our daughter to thank everyone for watching. I love asking our inspired guests, if you had a megaphone and you could talk to everyone in the whole world, and everyone had the opportunity to listen to you, what would you say?
Health is a state of wholeness. Remember, health is within.
Hmm.
You have control over your health.
I really appreciate that message. It's a world transforming message. Thank you for being the doctor that you are, and thank you for all the depth of definitions and meaning that you've brought to the larger conversation. I really appreciate your perspectives, Dr. Kyle.
I would say thank you for the connection and the communication, my friend.
Yeah. All
That's what
right.
we do.
Yeah. Well, blessings to you and your family, to all those you touch, and to all our listeners out there. Thank you very much for watching. So I'm just going to invite Luciana to join us here. Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.